So at this point, Bitcoin is essentially a stable coin at $89,000 to $90,000. And I understand how frustrating this is for a lot of people, but we've got to look at the bigger picture. We've got to see what the price action over the last 24 hours is telling us, and we have to look at the data and the news as to why all of this is happening and when things might start to shift. Jumping straight into Bitcoin's price action, we can see here in our little pattern we've got forming here, which people can call a bear flag, ascending triangle, whatever you want. Call it whatever you want, whatever you guys are seeing. But what I'm seeing is a very clear bounce off this support right here at 88,000 and some change. Now, this is good. But what, of course, we need to see now is a break of 90 and really a break at 92. And what I would love to see is a break of this resistance. Now, a lot of people are going to comment and say, well, obviously, we want to see a break of the resistance so we can go up. Yeah, absolutely. But guys, the price action is telling a story. And that story is telling us that we are making higher highs and higher lows. You can see, depending on what you think here, we have just put in a support and bounced very cleanly off that, all right? Grabbing liquidity and pushing up. So what we don't want to do is lose this resistance, and it came very close to that yesterday. And if we do lose that, I'd say it's very likely we come down to 83. If we lose this point of about 83,000, we come down to the $75,000 region. And that's just something that you need to accept. If this happens, what will you do? What will happen to your trades? And what will you do with your longer term positions, right? Will you add to your positions? Will you sell your positions? These are all things you need to figure out right now before it potentially happens. As you know, I have been heavily dollar cost averaging into my low leverage positions, and now I'm just waiting patiently for what I expect to be an eventual push to the upside. Now, that push to the upside may inevitably end up being a dead cat bounce, but that is okay because even at a dead cat bounce, we've seen in the past Bitcoin do about a 40% move before the confirmation of the bear market, and that 40% move can make a lot of money if you know what you're doing. Now, Bitcoin has decided to become a $90,000 stable coin. What is holding Bitcoin's price down and scaring the market every time we get a nice move? What is scaring the market all the way back down? Well, now we have something new. Well, not new, but something new that the market is scared about. Japan is set to hike interest rates 25 basis points. When will the interest rate nonsense leave us alone? December 19, Japan equals the largest holder of US debt. All right. Last time these rate hikes happened, Bitcoin dumped around 20%. These were, it dumped the 20% mostly at the highs, right? And there was a lot of other things at play. So is Bitcoin going to drop another 20% from here, which would total Bitcoin's drop? If we go 20% from where we are right about now, down another 20%, that puts us at $70,000, and that would be a total drop of about 44%. This is all possible, guys. This is something that's possible, and if we are in a bear market, of course, 60 to 70% is what's on the card. So again, like I said at the start, what will you do if this happens? For me, of course, my stop losses will be hit, but I've got my realized profit that I get to keep, right? That's why I take these profits out as quickly as possible. That's the strategy right now. A little bit less foot on the gas because there is not enough liquidity here for a lot of moves. Now, I do still think that we're going to get this move to the upside. Now, it's yet to be determined whether the move to the upside will be the dead cat bounce or simply the next move to the upside. But either way, it can be a substantial move. Like I said, 40% is what we saw last time when we got rejected. So lows to the high, 39%. That's a great move. We can get money. We can make money with Bitcoin, make money with altcoins in that move. Even if we do move into a bear market and then the bear market downward momentum really lasts 200 days. I can sustain that. The question is, can you? And if it does happen, what will you do? But ETFs are buying Ethereum, Bitcoin faster than new coins are being created. Let's look at the last 7 days here with bull theory. So Ethereum, ETFs bought 67,000 Ethereum. The network issued 18,000 Ethereum, and ETFs bought 363% of the weekly issuance. When it comes to Bitcoin, ETFs bought 3,170 Bitcoin. The network issued 3,150 Bitcoin. That's 100% of the new supply. So in both cases, ETF demand is matching or exceeding new supply, yet prices have not moved. When prices do not react even after the supply is absorbed, it usually means some holders are still selling and coins are moving from weak hands to stronger hands. This is not a demand problem. Demand is already higher than new supply, but price is lagging. Now look at the size of these inflows. Ethereum bought roughly $208 million worth of ETH. Bitcoin ETFs bought around $286 million of ETH. That's a large amount of capital being absorbed without major price reactions. In past cycles, this phase did not last very long. First flows showed up and then prices follow later. So we've discussed this. There are still people selling. There are big whales that got in early, and you might think that that means it's the end of Bitcoin, but I think that's the rebalancing of portfolios and the smart thing to do if you got in super early and you made a bunch of money. I myself agree with this mentality because we talk about it. Always take profits. Holding forever is just nonsense. We also have the US unlocking the biggest Bitcoin demand driver in history with that Bitcoin for America Act. Americans will be able to pay federal taxes in Bitcoin with zero capital gains tax and every Bitcoin going straight into the National Strategic Reserve. All right. The math is brutal. The IRS collects 5.2 trillion a year. Even 5% opt-in is 260 billion in annual Bitcoin flows. 10% is 520 billion. And I would say it's going to be more like 1%. If this actually goes through and people actually do it, I would expect 1%, which is still $52 billion without the ETFs, without the mining, without speculation. I think that's pretty huge to me. Now, in the short term, Ted Pillows thinks that we've taken out there's a good chunk of liquidity sitting around 88,000. I think we went and grabbed that after he posted it. So a good guy to follow if you want some insights. I don't just go bearish or bullish day to day, right? I stay in my lane, which is essentially bullish for the long term of Bitcoin, and then applying that logic to altcoins to accumulate more Bitcoin. That's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to show you what I'm doing, transparently show you the trades right now. The Dogecoin trade's got a $400 loss and a $10,000 realized gain. And the Solana trade is still in a loss and minor gains from Ethereum and Bitcoin. Just waiting patiently to see how this market turns out. Catch you in the next video. Peace.